When you get GI, the installer is pretty straightforward. You have to get both. If there's two files. GI is on its own, and fileProWeb is on its own. However, you don't have to get licenses for both. You're only licensing the GI server. Now, you might need to get a new license when you come up to different versions. That might be required depending on where the version is and also like the features that you have. But we're trying to work on that so that when it comes home, it will adjust it there and it'll update your license for you remotely. This is just the download. I took it upon myself. I didn't think everybody wanted to watch me downloading a file. You would just typically, like you do your other filePro things, you'd take and do that. So you'd have in your stuff in order to initially click and download your licenses for GI. And I have those all in this folder.
And obviously this is Linux. Or
this is Linux.
Windows.
Right. So got your nice license agreement. And you can't proceed without saying yes. Says GI requires an administration account for your GI admin. Would you like to configure the account? If you don't configure one, you have the option to take and create one at a later time, but you have to be root. Put your password in.
To be clear, this is not a Unix account it's creating. It's just a user within GI.
And you see, it even knows when you don't match.
Correct. It's just a GI.
Why does it say it's already installed?
No, it's ready.
Oh, right. See, I stayed up too late. All right, so you hit enter. Boom, it's successfully installed. Now it's asking you where's the license located.
What locations is it asking for?
Where I put it?
Oh, front roof. Okay.
Yeah, so. It'd be nice probably if we took and gave a directory listing, but.
In Windows, you can browse.
Yeah, it's a little harder.
Yeah.
And, well, you know, I forgot its name. So let me open up another one. Okay. Yeah, it wants to be stubborn because it's not probably in my table. Okay, I called this demo.
One above it.
What's that?
One above it.
Your license.
You're right. Right. Oh,
Forgot
wait.
install.
What's that?
You forgot to
Install.
install.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think Mr. Slash.
It's the keyboard's fault. Let's see.
It's not a picnic problem?
No.
Everybody know what that is, a picnic error? Problem in share, not in computer?
Now, after it installs, it tells you how many connections that are there. You hit enter, and it asks you if you wish to create users. I don't have any on this because it's a brand new machine. Now, these users are GI users. They are not OS level users. So,
If you have OS level users, will they
pull into here, or do we need to recreate all of our users?
You have to redefine them, but my recommendation is that you do make, just a second. My recommendation is to take and actually make valid users based on the OS. If not, it runs, but it runs not as the end user's location. So if you do a directory list or a process looking and stuff like that, you're not going to see the association. If the account exists, it will make that association for you when you take and look at your processes. So I'm done with it. Hit enter, and it added the GINmin, and it asked whether or not to start it. And we hit enter, and it's asking if you want to read the README. I'm just going to say forget the README. It's telling you where it's at. Now, at this point, GI is running. Service right there. So at this point, I could go in, can't go on the web, but I could go into GI and log into it successfully. And since it only has, it doesn't have anything on it but filePro, we just show you the main filePro menu, no files and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So now, once you got that, okay, now we move on to the web one. And I'm going to grab the license. No, I don't have a license with web. It's using the GI license. And it's smart enough to know that you have to be running it.
I'm sure you make your USB.
What's that?
I'm sure you're on USB.
Yeah, if not, I do enough volunteer service to get there. Says, do you wish to agree to it? We answer yes.
Sorry, what did you just launch?
This is the web.
Okay, the web install.
You have your default port of 8080. You can change that if you want. If you don't have anything else running, 8080 is just fine. It's a standard Tomcat port. We don't let you have to worry about it, but if you have Tomcat already running, you're probably going to need another port. And that's the port that the client's going to use when it accesses the web, not the port to GI server. GI server typically uses 4350, something like that.
Is there any reason you couldn't do network address / port translation at your firewall or whatever?
You mean just
Coming in on a specific port
Specific
and
and
having
change
to
it?
redirect to this?
no, as long as this is the ultimate end point, and that's all it's looking for. It needs to know where to run from, or you can get. Never seen that happen before, but my client.
No, it's because you opened up another terminal session that was lost and it timed out.
Oh, is that what it's
Yeah,
doing?
you're fine.
Let's just
That
close
wasn't
that.
the one that was,
All right. All right. It says, do you wish to use the same server as your default? Most of you are going to answer yes to this. Now, if you answer no, there's going to be another file that, or a file that's going to be put in place, and you need to address that afterwards, because we have to leave a file for you to address the internet web interface in order to change its port and address and stuff like that. If you use the default as yes, it's using the local, and it's fine as long as the server and filePro are the same. But if it's a different one, you have to change it because it needs to know where to go point to GI server. The problem is that is not passworded, so I don't think people want to have somewhere where somebody can direct their traffic without that. So we recommend to remove it, and it does say in the install notice, please remove this. We're trying to get to the point that we can build it in the installer and be able to change that with the prompt, but right now, because of licensing things and that, we haven't got there yet.
Chris, the answer to this question is this the filePro database? This is not filePro GI server.
This is saying, yeah, this is,
Neither.
does fileProWeb reside on the same server as GI server and filePro, the database?
So if it's open server, it should not be on the same server.
It can, no, it would, if it's open server, that it would be answered no.
No, okay, Linux, this is yes. Okay.
Unless we get Zenuous to get their 1.8 Java.
Right.
Well, and just, I guess to be clear, the same server as the filePro database, the GI server doesn't technically have, well, no, that would be on the same server as the database.
Yeah, it's the same as the database, so it was easier to say that than trying to ask people where GI server.
But it's really where GI server is that you're concerned about here?
Yeah, it asked, well, yeah, I'm trying to see whether or not web and GI server are residing on the same box to use the same address to talk to each other. That's what it's really looking for. Okay, it says, do you wish to have the protected 3D look fields? That defaults yes. Now what do we mean by that? So that you can see a relationship of the meaning of these questions. Is if these fields, they're grayed out typically if they're protected. If I would answer,
The exclamation mark. That's what you
what's that?
When you say protected, you're talking about fields with an exclamation mark
Correct.
instead of.
They were defined as an exclamation point within the filePro screens. Those are what I'm calling as protected. I'm considering these, by definition, I interpret them because I wrote this installer, so if you have complaints, I can modify it, but that's how I defined it. I'm willing to use the terminology different. But this is what I call as a 3D, because it's dimensional in a sense. In the protected field, when you have the exclamation point within web and GI, it's grayed out. These are white, the other one would be gray. So what I'm asking here is, do you wish those to be grayed out? Just the grayed out when you see a protected field, or if you would answer no, what's going to happen is those protected fields are going to just look like part of the text. Just like they are in character, you would not see any edit field locations of where that edit field resided, you know, and it's parameters of where it's laid out on that screen. So, like, if this was a protected field, it would just look like that. But because it wouldn't be, we would have it a dimension to it. That's what
We
it's
can go back
asking.
and forth in some config files. We want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I could change it if you want to. Want me to do that afterwards? But it's not hard. It's just going to look flat though, because it doesn't have any of those dimensions. But yes,
But
we
it
can
can be
change it.
modified, if you make a mistake there, you can get a change.
Yeah, if you make a mistake, all these parameters are changeable. And when I'm asking these, be aware, Logan's taking the default because he did the Windows installer, and he doesn't ask these questions if you got the Windows one, because it's a lot harder than just scripting in order to write a Windows installer. So a lot of these options that you're seeing here, this has the most questions for those options compared to what he's doing. So he said he's going to work on some of them. I don't know if they'll ever always see all of them, but nevertheless. Okay, so I'm just going to use the default yes. Now, since this is the first time printing, I'm allowing it to say that you can create that pop PDF by default. I'm saying no, because I don't. If you want the PDF printers, which I typically would probably put them in myself, I configure everything for you as far as putting an entry in your printer maintenance table and all that. So you say yes if you want it. At that time, it's asking for what's the client's IP, how it's going to see it. Because that could be different, as Tim just strictly pointed out. Somebody said, well, can't you define that? And I'm like, not really. You could have several VLANs or whatever. So 192.168.186. That 52 is this one. Now, it's all done.
So we now have 3 services running on here. The license manager for core filePro, the GI service, which will respond to regular GI clients or web, and the web interface, which will respond to HTML requests and communicate as a front end to the GI service.
Correct.
And did you put this into the startup for us, or is that on us to do?
What's that?
Did you put this into the Linux startup for us, or is that on us to do?
No, I did the work in order to make it a service, so you don't have to worry about the service. It will reboot. And Ernie's like, but I use SUSE. I'm like, really? Because we're CentOS people. So I ended up having to figure out how to do SUSE, because they don't do the same as for Red Hat. Did it work?
Oh, yeah, Logan fixed it, yeah.
Oh.
Logan.
Toby here's Logan.
Okay, Logan. You can take credit. Anyways, this here, if you read through this is telling you where your drop-down files are. I automatically, to make life easier, have in the Unix versions, when you install, I link to I consider the root location, this FP Office folder. Instead of trying to talk people into the full pass and all that, it's a lot easier to go into APPLFP. There you have your dd0.txt file that we were talking about the other day, where you can end up having define all your drop downs, you know what to look for on the screen. And then it looks in this APPL Office drop-downs folder in order to stick your text files. If you do that, they're going to work. So you don't have to worry about, oh, where did that configuration folder and all that go. If you want to and get adventuresome, you can change those. This here is telling you how to start it up. Then here is the one, that file that I was talking about, this web config. If I had a different box, like the scope box that we're talking about, you would have to go to this web address prior to running it, and you have to point to where that other server is. So, I don't know. Typically when we've used this, I think Logan uses Windows for his server, or filePro web server, and I use the Linux ones to address our BSD. And what you saw when my brother was demonstrating it, he was using a Linux box to deal with the fileProWeb, and SCO was running the filePro engine. So this file we had to go in here and modify it. Hopefully we can do away with that. And then I have this note: to open any port requires you to open your firewall. I'm not dealing with that, folks. You can deal with your ports yourself, because there's too many variances of OSs and stuff like that. And here's the little thing. Once you configure your file, which is this one, go remove this line entry. If you had answered, as I did, that it was my local host, the same host, I don't even put this in there, that file entry, so you don't have to worry about it. But I do recommend that you go remove that right now if you do use a SCO box or another one, because anybody can get to that URL and there's no password to it. So, now that we did that, here's that address, and this is just prior to installing all that. Notice it doesn't have anything there.
Do you need the /fp tech on the end of the path?
Yes, the FP tech is telling me, yeah, that's part of it, URL at this present time. So there you go. We have the login just as it is. I'll log in. Just like I had. So you have all your menus.
Are the default home frames there basically what you're putting in as a default?
These are the defaults.
Okay.
As I said before, this here is actually a remote one. The idea here originally was so that I could have information to give to my customer. Like, a lot of times we have 180 courts. It's sometimes difficult to get to every single court in a year. But there's law changes. Maybe I have a sale because I can get these printers really cheap or something like that, and I want to give that promotion. I could put it on a web page on my own site, and then every time they log in, it heads home, and it'll show that image right there. So that then it looks like I'm interacting with my customer, and I'm really not doing anything but updating one web page. This site over here, I just gave this as a little help. It shows you there's the online manual for filePro, the video, online video training. As they said, ESEX beginner ones are there. They're on, I think these are, yeah. They're all here on the beginning ones. So they're all at your fingertips. They're also on, that's through the filePro website, but they're also on YouTube. Right there, the YouTube channel. So we have PTech Ohio, 36 subscribers, and we have all these videos, as you can see. We haven't had any new ones in a while. They will be coming out though.
You guys honor secure HTTP report 443?
Yeah, you can if you take and handle HTTPS as well. I'm not doing it here because of demonstrating and trying to move around and all that other stuff, but if you put it in place, it'll handle it.
Well, and the IP address that we put in could be a URL. Well, the service needs to know the IP address of the GI server. But if it's on the same machine, that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It asks for an IP address. We're using an IP address here, but that obviously could be a...
It could be a URL.
A URL.
Right. So, there you are, guys, in the...
Can you bring up a Parquet add-on a tutorial file, something that hasn't been tailored at all for...
Okay, yeah. Here's your utilities, tutorial samples. I don't know. Let's see. There it is with no modifications whatsoever. Straight out for your install. Buttons are at the top. All your fields are defined. So,
It's pretty good.
without having to do any work, that's amazing to me. Because
We're pretty sure that was written in 3.0, so,
oh,
At least.
at
Yeah.
least.
so okay, now I guess it's my understanding we were supposed to have an open question and answering.